Welcome to the Body Wise podcast. I'm Beth Manning, a psychic healer and expert at reading the body and healing with energetics. And here we go beyond the physical, exploring emotions, beliefs, energy, and spiritual connection to help you heal, align, and fully embody your truth and step into your power. So, welcome back to the Body Wise podcast. I have a question for you. And that is, when is the last time you fully trusted your inner knowing? You fully trusted your intuition. So I want you to think about that for a minute. Because so often we second guess ourselves. We doubt ourselves. We write it off. We say, I don't know if I was really hearing that correctly, or I don't know, maybe I'll wait for like 50 more signs and then I'll take some action. But we have such a beautiful resource inside of ourselves at all times, when especially right now there's so much talk in the world, there's so much chaos, there's so much misinformation out there, that so much of the energy of 2025 is asking you to start going inside, to start trusting what you hear there, and to start taking action from this place. So I really want to challenge you to think about maybe how you're getting in the way of that, or if you're second guessing it or doubting it, or not allowing it to unfold, right? How we know that we're trusting this inner knowing is that when we take that action, we can see it through to the end. We can see, okay, yes, that was a good move for me, or oh, now I need to pivot a little bit. Maybe that wasn't the best decision for me. So that's the thing about this inner knowing, this intuition, is that it's constantly guiding us. And I like to call it our inner wise woman. That's what my guides always say to me, is trust and follow that inner wise woman. And it's this beautiful connection and collection of energy inside of ourselves that is always guiding you. It always has the next step, that next breadcrumb in line with what you want to do next, or what you want to create next in your life. And it's always helping you to do that. But the problem is that we get so inside of our heads and inside of our logical minds that we don't trust it. Because often what makes sense logically is not the answer. Like oftentimes that is where we keep getting stuck, where we keep tripping ourselves up in life, is because our logic is so limited and it's so based on past experiences, what you grew up hearing, what society told you works, what society told you doesn't work, what the right way is and the wrong way is of doing things. And that can keep you so limited in your life with what you want to achieve, and thinking outside the box and really challenging your growth in new and exciting ways. So let's talk about how we can start to silence that mind and build your trust and start to really tap into that inner knowing, that beautiful inner wise woman that we all hold inside of ourselves and that everybody can tap into. I've had clients come to me who feel so disconnected from their bodies. They've had past traumas, sexual traumas, things that have happened that have made them feel just like, I can't return home. I'm so lost. And you can always return home. And I just want to remind you of that, like regardless of what your past experience has been with trusting your body, with trusting that inner knowing, that you can always come home. You can. Sometimes it just takes a little longer than maybe somebody else's journey, but it's always possible. And it's such a beautiful homecoming and to reunite people with their bodies. So I just want you to keep that in mind if it feels really impossible for you. So I think there's this myth around intuition and inner knowing that it's like a loud voice, that it's just, like everything, the skies part and everything is silenced, and this clear voice just shoots through everything and gives clear directions. And that is not the case. That will keep you very stuck if you're waiting for 100% clarity on this, because so much of our inner knowing is about trust, is about cultivating that relationship with ourselves where we're trusting, we're listening, and we're taking an action. And that's the other piece of intuition, is that there's an action element to this that is necessary to keep things moving along. Like, we don't just want to be collecting data, collecting information. When our intuition says go right, if that feels good, and we'll talk about how to know, if that feels good, we want to go right. We don't want to keep going to the left. We want to say, okay, I'm going to trust going to the right. And if going to the right maybe doesn't pan out, or it leads to something that I don't like, I know that I can always go left, or I can go, a different way. And that's the magic with this. It's kind of like dancing with the universe. Like, we're getting these messages, we're taking action, then we're shifting again. And all this is producing this beautiful forward momentum in our lives. We're not just staying in one place, collecting information, writing it in our journal, being like, okay, maybe one day I will go right, but I'm going left, until I get further evidence, right? We want to start to trust that, okay, I can go right, and then the next breadcrumb will come. The next step will come for me. And if you really want a good example of this, I invite you to go back and listen to the show that I did, I think it was 2 episodes ago, with letting go and trusting the universe. I talked all about how everything in my life was falling apart. Like, literally, I didn't have a place to live. Jobs were not panning out for my family, and we were trying to find a new place to live when our townhouse was being sold, and I knew intuitively that we would be making a big move back to where my family was. Like, I knew intuitively with every house we looked at, with every time the real estate agent was like, this is the place, I found the place, I just knew intuitively that none of those were going to pan out. And so I started to shift into, okay, show me what's next. What is the next step? And I started to follow those breadcrumbs. But if you had told me a year earlier that I was going to move and I wasn't going to find a house, I'd be like, that's crazy. That's nuts. I don't even know like how that would work out. But that's the thing about our intuition, is and our inner knowing is bigger than we are. It's more expansive than our mind is. And that's the beauty of it too, is that sometimes it will show you doors that you didn't even know existed. So the more you can start to trust, the more you can start to lean in, the more you have access to this life beyond your wildest dreams, like beyond what you ever thought was possible. So sometimes intuition, this inner knowing, this inner wise woman, whatever resonates the most with you to call it, that can feel like it doesn't necessarily always, it's not a voice necessarily. It can be a feeling. It can be a shift in your energy. It can be this deep knowing. And it's different for everyone. So I want you to start exploring that. What does this sound like? What does this feel like? And the key with that is to start making some more space in your life, some more quiet time for that to come forward so that you can start to understand it. You can start to feel it. You can start to know, like, okay, this is my inner knowing bubbling up. There's something to listen to here with this. Because often we're just so used to following our mind and following our logic. And if we have a problem to solve, we're like good little students from school who all, tuned into our logic and tuned into our brain to come up with the answer. And this just becomes so ingrained that we forget that we have this beautiful, expansive knowing and access to this collective wisdom inside of ourselves, right? We have access to all the wisdom of our ancestors, the collective wisdom of the quantum field around us. We have so much that we can pull from beyond just our logical mind, okay? So when that logical mind starts, one of the biggest mistakes that we make is we give it our attention. So where our attention goes, our energy flows. So we're going to start building that up more and more energetically, and it's going to be like our inner knowing is going to be softer and softer and softer. It's like getting squeezed out here. So that's why I always say, when the mind pipes up, I don't want you to just push it away and like, oh, shut up, I'm not listening to you. I want you to acknowledge that it thinks it's doing its job. So it's just like a little kid who's like, I need this, or I'm fearful of this, or this might not work out, right? That's what our mind does. It just reminds us of past things, our past beliefs, our past ways of dealing with emotions, of seeing the world, of defining our world. But that's not true necessarily. It's just an old pattern playing inside because we've thought it enough times. So when the mind pipes up, you say, okay, thanks. I hear you. I know that you want to take care of me. I know you want to keep me safe. But you got to trust me on this. I have a feeling that, that this other thing might work out. So let's do this. Let's give it a try. So it's like a little child. We don't want to just say like, shut up if it's crying. We want to see, okay, what do you need? Okay, I'm going to help you feel heard, right? We want to just help that mind feel heard. And then we can start to kind of shift it into the background a little bit more. And then we can start to put more energy into that inner knowing and starting to say, okay, this is what I'm feeding energy to. This is what I'm prioritizing right now. This is what I want more information from. And this is a back and forth practice. It takes a little bit of time, but we want to treat our mind, not like that enemy, but we want to see that it's trying to help us, acknowledge that, and then start to shift our focus. Okay, so that inner wisdom is often a pretty quiet voice. But one way to know, so many people ask, is this fear, anxiety, or is this my intuition? Like, how do I know the difference? And the inner wisdom will lead with often love or calm. It's often soft, decisive. So it was like when I was receiving the message that, like, you're going to be moving like back to your family. It was said in such a soft, loving way, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, you're so screwed. You're moving. Like, what are you going to do? When are you going to do that? How much is it going to cost? Like, that would have been my mind. That would have been my mind trying to solve the problem of moving. The intuition is so different. because it's like this loving voice of, you're okay, and this is what's happening. Or you're okay, and this is the next step for you. And you can feel in your body, like if so everybody has a different response to this, so I'd love for you to really understand yours. But for me, and for a lot of my clients too, it's this like spreading in the chest, it's this warmth, it's this opening, it's this inner knowing, it's this love feeling where it's like, okay, this might not be the convenient thing for you, but this is what's really aligned for you. This is what's next for you. Okay, so that can be a way to start to trust that voice. Because our ego, our mind is often fearful and it's often urgent. Okay, there isn't usually a fearful urgency. Okay, so I'll say fearful as in like you got to do this now. If you don't do this now, this is what could happen. You don't want that to happen. Like that's the voice more of the ego, the fear, the human. Whereas that inner wise woman, even if she's like, you need to do this now, it's said in a very different tone than when there's that panic of a time crunch. Okay, so the important thing about accessing this inner wisdom is that it becomes a practice. So we're not just using it when we need an answer or when we're like our back is against the wall about something. Like I would love for you to start tuning in and to start understanding how you, in particular, relate to this, what it sounds like to you, what it feels like in your body, what happens when you trust it. Maybe write down when you start to trust some of this stuff, the action that you took, and then you can go back and look and see like, oh yeah, that was a really great decision that I made. I'm really glad that I did that step. And then you can start to build that trust. It's like building a relationship with this inner knowing so that it starts to become more and more loud. And I think everyone nurtures it a little bit differently. I know for me, it's all about silence. It's all about having silence in my day, building it into activities like driving, taking walks, taking hikes. Doing that in silence really helps for this inner knowing to come forward, to really connect with my inner wise woman in a deep, more expansive way. I mean, you might find that doing yoga, journaling, meditating, whatever it is for you, I'd love for you to play around and see what really resonates with you. And if you would like to explore this further, I have a new workshop called Awakening, where we are learning to tap into that inner wise woman. We're going to do it together. We're going to do the energy piece of it to really feel and tap into your body and understand how to connect, how to get that deeper knowing, how to start to trust and to follow that trust, and to really shift into looking for the answers that you're seeking outside of yourself, in books, in podcasts, in people around you, in the so-called experts. This is such a year for returning to you, for finding your inner voice, your inner wisdom, because there's so much importance that's bubbling up right now about how to be more of a leader in our own lives, how to step into your purpose, how to have a more fulfilling life. And there's just so many of the answers that you're seeking that are waiting inside of you. So if you'd like more information about Awakening, be sure that you are on my email list. I'll put the link below, or you're following me on social media. at Beth Manning Intuitive on Instagram, Facebook, Threads. And I would love for you to share this with a friend, someone who would like to learn how to connect to their body a little bit deeper to get these messages. And please leave a review, a starred rating. I would so, so appreciate it. And thank you so much for tuning in today. And I will see you next time on the Body Wise podcast.